Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about a thriller film called Shattered from 2022. A lot of interesting things are waiting for you. The movie tells the story of a rich man named Chris who is in the process of divorcing his wife. Chris falls in love with a mysterious stranger named Sky. Soon he, his ex-wife, and their child find themselves in an interesting situation. Let's get started. Chris, a young millionaire who made his fortune in IT, lives in his secluded cabin in the mountains and is currently in the process of getting a divorce. Speaking via video link with his wife Jamie, Chris says that he put off signing the documents for as long as possible because he couldn't believe that it was over between them. Jamie made the decision to leave her husband because work has always been more important to him than family. We also learn that they have a wonderful daughter named Willow. One languid evening, Chris meets a charming girl named Sky. She asks Chris to help her choose a wine. On the way out of the store, Sky says that the taxi canceled, and Chris kindly offers to give her a ride home. She tells him about her friend Lisa, who shares an apartment with her. They had a fight not long before, and Sky hopes that Lisa is already asleep so that she doesn't have to fight with her again. Chris offers to go to his house and spend some time there, and then he will bring her home. But the girl refuses. However, after thinking about it, she finally agrees. They arrive at Chris's house. Sky is surprised to see such a luxurious house. Over a glass of wine, Chris tells her about himself. Some time ago, Google offered him a good deal, and he sold them his own development, a home security app. Chris tells her that he is a sociophobe and is also obsessed with his own security, and that he has a lot of valuable things at home and has a lot to protect. Now the girl tells us about herself. Sky used to work as a model in Los Angeles, but she hated being just a body and clothes, a kind of living mannequin. She came here to work to find something more interesting, but she didn't find anything, so now she works as a waitress in a bar. After a frank conversation, Sky asks for a ride home. Chris offers an alternative and invites her to stay with him until the morning. The girl gladly agrees to this offer, not hiding her fantasies. The girl's fantasies are quite hot, so they both begin to realize them. Sky returns home and has a fight with her friend Lisa. When she hears her friend accuse her of wandering around, she locks herself in her room. Meanwhile, Chris decides to go to the bar where the girl he had a great evening with works. He wants to know why she left without telling him. When Chris arrives at the bar and asks the girl, Sky confesses that she was actually hoping he would come to her, and she is very happy to see him again. Soon she tells him about herself, about how she never had a real family because she was adopted so many times since she was 6 that she can't remember them all. Sky says her childhood was a nightmare. Chris likes that she is honest with him and tells her that she is wonderful. In the parking lot, they encounter a mugger who decides to rob the car. Chris says that he doesn't want any trouble and asks the robber to just go away, but Sky is more aggressive, throws a bottle at him and tells him to get out. As a result, the robber breaks Chris's leg and runs away. When Chris returns home from the hospital, he tells her that he has hired a nurse because it will be difficult for him to even cook with this cast. Sky says that she will be better than any nurse, and Chris will be able to evaluate her main ability by making an omelet in the morning. Among other things, she has interesting fantasies. I think you all know what kind of fantasies I'm talking about. Later, the movie introduces us to Ronald. He is the owner of the motel where Sky and Lisa rent an apartment. The man is very unhappy that the girls have once again fallen behind on their rent. He warns them that he will evict them if he does not receive the rent within a few days. It turns out that Lisa is not just Sky's friend, but her girlfriend. When Lisa finds out that Sky has decided to leave her life for Chris, she begs her not to, saying that she will die without her. Despite her friend's persuasion, Sky moves in with Chris. Together they have a great time, drinking expensive wine and talking under the night sky while lying in the jacuzzi. After a while, Chris confesses to Sky that he is in love with her. The girl reciprocates and says that it scares her. Chris asks what they should do about it, and Sky replies that they should live happily ever after. Meanwhile, Ronald finds Lisa dead in the bathroom. The police who arrive at the scene ask if there is any reason to believe it was an accident. Ronald says that the girl was desperate and her roommate had left her, so it's obvious. However, the detective says that there is no girl named Sky in the databases. Chris talks to his wife on video and asks her to come over on Friday. He will sign all the documents and also see his daughter. He also tells Jamie that he has hired a private nurse, which Jamie says is very strange for him. After all, Chris is very concerned about safety, and at the same time he brings a stranger into the house. After this conversation, he decides to search Sky's purse, but finds nothing but a photo of her and her friend Lisa together. Sky notices that Chris is going through her things, but she doesn't blame him. She says it's normal and realizes that he wants to get to know her better. After this conversation, they go back to living out their fantasies. In the morning, Chris wakes up alone and can't find his phone. He learns from the news that his friend Sky has died, and the police still can't figure out if it was a murder or if she died of her own free will. At that moment, Sky appears and says that she went to get food. Chris tells her about what he saw on the news and says she should go to the police. When he tells her that it would be very stupid of her, Sky replies that he killed her. With complete indifference and coldness, Skye says that Lisa was a great lover, but she wanted to know too much. She had an apartment, the perfect place to keep an eye on Chris for the last 2 months. She knew absolutely everything about him. For example, that he had no visitors, that the gardener would not be here for another 6 days, the exact time he slept, ate, and everything else. Chris finally realizes that their entire encounter was a carefully thought out and calculated scam. Furious at what he has heard, Chris asks the girl to get out of his house. Then he tries to leave himself, but the phone that is responsible for the entire security system, and which he supposedly lost, ends up in Skye's possession. This is the end of the honeymoon. Meanwhile, Ronald finds a spyglass while cleaning his apartment and starts peeping through the window at girls in rich mansions in the mountains. At this time, Skye asks Chris for personal information in order to deprive him of all his finances and appropriate all his wealth for herself. Later, Ronald notices the same house and sees Skye there. Chris tries to attack the girl, but eventually fails. Skye says that in this situation, it is better for the man to cooperate because if he resists, his daughter could get hurt. The girl decides to steal absolutely everything from Chris. She wants to sell even the paintings and even the furniture. The girl's partner arrives at the house to sell the items. It turns out to be the same burglar who injured Chris's leg. Meanwhile, Ronald waits for Skye to leave. Then he sneaks into the house, but the man is in no hurry to let the prisoner go. Chris explains that Skye is watching the house from her phone, and she already knows that Ronald is inside. He asks her to call the police, but Ronald doesn't have a phone. Obsessed with money, he wants to make a lot of money quickly and flee the scene. Ronald asks for $10,000, but when he finds out that Chris doesn't keep cash at home, he decides to take a Picasso painting, which is valued at $5 million. At this point, Skye returns home. Leaving unnecessary witnesses is clearly not in her plans. While she gets rid of Ronald with a sword, Chris manages to escape. But a problem arises. All the cars are blocked, and Chris rides a motorcycle. Crashing into a rock, Chris falls to the road. A man picks him up. He lets him call the police, but a minute later, Chris realizes that he is not talking to the police, but to Skye. The man who picked up Chris turns out to be another accomplice of the girl. In the house, the accomplice tells about himself, and it turns out that he is Skye's stepfather. He adopted her when she was 14 years old and taught her to do what she does best: seduce and court young, rich boys like Chris. Then he starts reading him morals about rich and poor, pretending to be Robin Hood. After that, he goes to do business with Skye. Chris himself witnesses this process. Chris tells Skye that she didn't have to take it all. He would have given her everything he had anyway, shared it all because he loves her. She replies that it was a nice dream, but nothing more. Chris says she took everything from him. Why doesn't she just leave? Skye replies that she took everything from him except for $14 million worth of securities in the form of bonds, which are in a vault at one of the largest American banks. Chris says that they will not be able to access the vault without his presence, because they need to pass a biometric fingerprint check. Without hesitation, his stepfather makes the only right decision under the circumstances. Chris is visited by his wife and daughter. Jamie notices that something is wrong in the house and calls Willow over. Jamie asks him to let his daughter go and explain what's going on. As a result, the robbers lock everyone in the locker room and go to the bank with Chris's finger. The robbers try to gain access to the camera. At this time, Chris asks his daughter to get into the ventilation system and free them. After that, Chris tells his wife about everything that happened and says that the robbers went for the bonds. Jamie tells him that the bonds are no longer in the locker because, on the advice of her lawyer, she took them away a long time ago to have leverage over Chris for a divorce. The deceived fraudsters hurry home. Meanwhile, the daughter fires her parents. Skye takes a gun to get rid of Chris because they don't need him anymore, and now they need to find Chris's wife. After hiding his wife and daughter, Chris attacks his accomplice and seriously wounds him. At that moment, Skye appears, and the man asks to shoot Chris. However, Skye unexpectedly shoots his accomplice. Seizing the moment, Chris wounds Skye. He grabs his phone and hides in the house. After a while wandering around the house, they get into a fight. However, the seemingly fragile girl is not so easy to handle. In the end, Willow shoots Skye with a pistol, and the police arrive at the house. At the last moment of the movie, the girl confesses to Chris that her name is not really Chris, but Margaret. If you have watched the video so far, you should know that I'm happy to have viewers like you. Thank you for watching to the end. Subscribe to the channel and follow the news. OLEJA Recapped was with you. See you soon.